I absolutely love South Park, and who wouldn't, aside from maybe this character. It has great characters, great satire, great commentary, a ton of memorable moments, and most importantly, great comedy. South Park as of now is on to its 23rd season, and it shows no signs of stopping or being clever with its social satire. South Park has without a doubt changed my life and who I am as a person, and for very good reasons. But instead of writing a list of my top 100 episodes, let's talk about the Halloween holiday specials. Now, while the Christmas ones are more well known and remembered, there are actually some pretty good and fun Halloween episodes as well. But unlike the Christmas ones, the challenge of coming up with how many Halloween episodes there are is quite difficult. The reason being is that there's no clear list on what is a Halloween episode. I gathered 12 possible episodes as Halloween episodes, but less than half of these weren't Halloween enough. These episodes include Goth Kids 3, Dawn of the Posers, Pandemic Part 1 and Part 2, The Startling, Margarine, and Dead Celebrities. While these episodes do have horror-related elements in them, or parodies to horror flicks, I really don't see them as Halloween episodes. However, there are 7 episodes that I do consider Halloween episodes, and I will list my favorites from least best to best. And since these episodes may not be scary enough for some of you, don't worry, as I've included a spooky vision, with a combination of Viacom being a bunch of dicks and YouTube being a bunch of pussies. So, without further shitting your pants, let's talk about the top 7 best Halloween episodes of South Park.
Going down South Park, gonna have myself a time.
Number 7. The Scoots. This is the latest Halloween special in season 22, but it's still a good episode. The episode starts with a usual day preparing for Halloween until the residents notice some random scooters lying around. They turn out to be e-scooters where people can use them with an app on their phone and a credit card number. The kids of South Park all see this as a way to get a ton of candy on Halloween, leaving the adults in absolute fear that they won't have enough candy to give out on trick-or-treat night. And the fear escalates even more when it turns out that kids from neighboring towns plans to trick-or-treat in South Park, causing mass panic and absolute chaos among the adults. However, there are 2 people in particular that despise the e-scooter since it started. The first being Kenny, who can't ride one since he has no phone, causing him to be left out by his friends as every kid plans to scoot on Halloween. And the other is the school counselor, Mr. Mankey, who just sees this as a lazy way to replace cars. And his hate for them becomes more relevant as people keep getting in his damn way. So can the adults survive on Halloween night? Can Mr. Mankey and Kenny work together to stop the e-scooters from destroying civilization as we know it? Now this episode is a pretty fun episode, and I do love it when they have the characters overreact to the terror of such a simplistic idea. In fact, the build-up and terror of the Scoots is a parody to Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and it's a pretty solid parody with good laughs and an overall fun episode. Though I would be lying if I said it was a great episode. Sometimes it loses its focus here and there on what it's trying to be, as you have Fortnite costumes that in no way has any satirical purposes other than to show that this is what kids are into nowadays. And while the terror is hilarious, it's not really creepy or spooky. And even then, the terror itself is inconsistent. One moment you'll have Mr. Mankey enter the candy store with e-scooters outside, and when he leaves, more are present. This obviously parodies how more and more birds show up once they are in town. So this is obviously building up that the e-scooters are self-conscious, right? Well, sorta? I mean, you get obvious hints that they are haunting the town, but in the end, the actual terror comes down to the kids overwhelming the neighborhood and not so much the scooters themselves being a threat. I don't know, it's a good parody, but the creepy value is very inconsistent and leaves you wondering if this was meant to be a supernatural episode, or just a simple over-the-top extreme among the town. The inconsistency is pretty distracting, but overall, it's still a good episode. And in the end, the moral of the story is, f*** these new means of transportation, stick with cars, or walk, you lazy assholes. Okay.
There's a bowl of Rice Krispie treats at the side door! The side door, you animals!
Number 666. Hell on Earth 2006. I used to really love this episode and watched it a lot among some of my other favorite episodes, though in comparison to the other Halloween episodes, it's not as great to be honest, but just like Scoots, it's still a very good episode. The premise is that Satan wants to throw a Halloween party in Los Angeles and make it his very own special night. So he has invitations for his demons, the damned, and most importantly, celebrities to attend his party as they have to have blue wristbands. But he's being such a stubborn, spoiled ass about the type of party he wants.
This is getting really expensive.
Shut up, it's Halloween! Oh, screw that then. I don't want a fondue fountain if P. Diddy had one.
Does it matter?
Yes, it matters! I'm not alienating my friends! I know they come first! Nobody can look hotter than me! It's my Super Sweet 16 Halloween party! Damn it, what didn't Diddy do?
Meanwhile, the boys attempt to summon a dead spirit by saying Biggie Smalls in front of the mirror 3 times. And when Butter succeeds to do it on his own, he barely escapes death as the dead rapper himself threatens Butters to bring him to Satan's Halloween party in Los Angeles, with the totally understandable fear of being grounded.
But Dad is gonna bust a cap in my ass!
Wait, you want to get shot or you want to be grounded?
Ah!
Meanwhile, you got 3 serial killers that are hired to pick up Satan's Ferrari cake, but since they can't resist the urge to kill people, they keep delaying the cake from being delivered. The problems with this episode is very minor. For one, this is a really creative idea, and I love the surreal imagery of Earth and Hell having a Halloween party together in some ridiculous looking costumes. However, there's some filler plots that really don't go anywhere. For example, the 3 serial killers getting the cake. All their criminal antics just end up being pointless for the most part, as their antics is supposed to be a parody to the Three Stooges. But unlike that where it's funny slapstick, I really didn't find their antics to be that funny. There's also this side plot where you have some Catholic priests who want to sabotage the party while hypocritically saying that they can't let evil get away with having a Halloween party on Earth. And their pedophilia is based off of the episode Red Hot Catholic Love. And while this could be a very interesting subplot, it really goes nowhere. They manage to get inside the party and they celebrate, and that's it. And there's a really dumb too soon joke with Steve Irwin recently passing away that honestly was just stupid. However, what makes this episode so great in my opinion is the satire. This episode mocks a reality show called My Super Sweet 16, a show where they document very spoiled and rotten teenagers who throw temper tantrums over the most stupidest things. Trey Parker and Matt Stone really hate the show and felt like mocking it with Satan as their spoiled rich girl. As they quote, "Where South Park satirizes offensive behavior, My Super Sweet 16 celebrates it. This is probably the most disgusting, foul show ever made. Where we would be ripping on people acting like that, on My Super Sweet 16, the girls act that horrible and they are celebrated for it at the end, teaching little girls around the country that that's how you should act." I can say every single girl that has been on that show, My Super Sweet 16, is evil. Is an evil, horrible person? It's just that simple. No arguments here. Because unlike that show where they are praised for their spoiled attitude and never disciplined for it, Satan, who's already a likable character, at least learns from his mistakes in the end and does the right thing for others. And if the devil himself on Halloween can be a better decent human being than these brats on a reality show, that's gotta be saying a lot. Follow Satan's example, kids. He is less evil than these stupid spoiled brats.
Damn it, what didn't Diddy do?
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woes behind.
Number 5. A Nightmare on FaceTime. 2 halves of this episode revolve around the Marsh family on Halloween night as Stan's father Randy buys an old abandoned Blockbuster. What? You don't know what a Blockbuster is, my dear viewer? Well, let me explain. These were video rental stores where you could rent video games or movies for a day or sometimes a week, and return it later and rent another movie or another video game, and hope to God that the last owner didn't scratch the goddamn fucking disc! Case in point, it's how we would watch movies before online streaming, back when we had DVDs and VHS tapes. What? You don't know what VHS tapes are, my dear viewer? Well, sucks to be you. Anyways, the joke of this episode is how everyone has moved on from renting movies to watching movies now with online streaming, with many people finding the Blockbuster to be a haunting, scary place. So when customers are not showing up, this drives Randy absolutely insane, forcing his kids to stay in the store while the rest of their friends go out on trick-or-treat night. This puts a dilemma on Stan, as he was supposed to show up as Captain America with his friends who are the other Avengers. But they come up with the complicated plan of pulling Stan everywhere via FaceTime while he's still at the Blockbuster. But when they try to stop some robbers, Stan is held hostage as the robbers demand to know where his friends are so they can kill off any witnesses. All while Randy is hallucinating ghosts and becoming more psychotic. What makes this episode so much fun is how the characters over-exaggerate something that's really not that extreme, with Stan acting like he's being tortured and knocked out as if he was really there, and Randy becoming completely nuts. And half of this episode with Randy and the Blockbuster video parodies Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and a lot of the humor really comes from how Randy over-exaggerates his denial that no one wants to rent videos anymore, which I'm sure a lot of us were like before we finally gave into online streaming. I could certainly say I was like that before I gave into Netflix. This is definitely a fun, surreal episode between two over-the-top extremes and plenty of Gangnam Style, as that was the popular thing back in 2012. Overall, it's a fun episode with a good parody, fun dumb jokes, and a night on FaceTime. Technology may have evolved, but it's nothing to fear. You can't go back to the old ways without driving yourself insane.
To be honest, I feel kind of bad for him.
Stan, get off the damn phone. People are gonna start calling to reserve movies. Go!
Oh, never mind. I hate him again.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woes behind.
Number 4. Spooky Fish. This episode also included its own spooky vision of having a cutout picture of Barbra Streisand that would change between commercial breaks. Why is that, you ask? Well, simply because she was Trey Parker and Matt Stone's most hated celebrity, who they've made fun of in the episode Mega Streisand, the almost impossible to watch episodes 200 and 201, as well as her being a swear word in the movie.
Fuck, shit, cock, ass, titties, burner, bitch, muff, pussy, cock, butthole, Barbra Streisand!
Whatever the reasons are, it doesn't matter, as this spooky vision was the response to her talking about the Mega Streisand episode in an interview. She attacked it not for her portrayal as a monster, but promoting cynicism among children, despite the fact that the show wasn't even intended for children. Anyways, what is the actual episode about? The episode starts off where Stan's aunt gives Shelley an awesome surround sound TV set, and gives Stan a fish. What a bitch. But there seems to be two abnormalities going on. One is that Stan's fish constantly haunts him at night and ends up killing random people, which Stan's protective mother thinks it was her son's doing and tries to hide the evidence so that way no one will steal her precious sweet little baby away. The second is that Cartman one day shows up as a nice friend with a mustache, and the next he's back to being his usual douchey self, and it turns out that the nicer Cartman is actually a parallel universe Cartman. This episode is full of laughs, legit good humor, and even makes fun of how crappy split screen effects are. The extent Sharon goes to protect her son is hilarious, the overall answers on why there's a nicer version of Cartman is creative, and later in the episode we get to see that it's not just an evil fish. We also get an evil version of Stan and Kyle. This is definitely one of their most original episodes and arguably the most original Halloween episode of South Park with very little parody to other horror flicks. It succeeds as a great episode and it's just overall creative. And there's honestly not much more I can say about it. Go give it a watch and hopefully you can overcome your fears of their spooky vision. Sorry Trey Parker and Matt Stone, but mine is scarier.
If that mockingbird don't sing, Mama's gonna bury it in the backyard.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind.
Number 3. Korn's Groovy Pirate Ghost Mystery. This episode takes place around South Park's Halloween haunt party on the dock as the kids want to try to find a way to scare the 5th graders who keep on scaring them. Meanwhile, you have Cartman, who is more excited for Christmas as he can't stop singing Christmas carols. And the debut of South Park priest Father Maxi makes his first appearance as he sees Halloween as nothing more than a worship for Satan. Father Maxi is one of those characters that starts off as an antagonist in most of the episodes he's in, but has been a good guy in a couple ones, including A Boy and a Priest and Red Hot Catholic Love. The boys come up with a pretty sadistic plan to scare the 5th graders by using Kyle's dead grandmother. Much to Kyle's reluctance, of course, but end up losing the body as the case of the missing dead grandmother starts with some very disturbing necrophilia jokes. But also coming to town for the Halloween haunt is the band Korn, played by the real-life Korn themselves, as their designs and persona are heavily based off of the old Scooby-Doo shows. And the entire episode with them is essentially a parody of a Scooby-Doo episode as they try to solve the mystery of the pirate ghosts that haunt South Park. The best stuff in this episode definitely comes from the Scooby-Doo parody with Korn and the overall shock and dark humor. And it doesn't just revolve around necrophilia and Kyle's dead grandmother. The humor is so dark, so disturbing, yet very funny and fitting for a Halloween episode. There's only one negative thing I can think about this episode, but it's more of a disclaimer. At the end of the episode, Korn performs a song number as the last minute is nothing but strobe light effects. I won't play it here, but I will warn you that if you do have any epilepsy in general, the ending is essentially one strobe light show, and while it humorously works towards the overall message of the episode, this may come off as a bad ending for those who can't look at strobe lights. But overall, this is a solid Halloween episode with a ton of dark humor, laughs, a nice parody to Scooby-Doo, and it just feels like Halloween all around. Regardless if you think Halloween worships Satan or not, there's no denying that the disturbing nature can sometimes be a very fun experience. For the most part.
Shiver me, it's Christmas time again.
Come on down South Park.
Number 2. Sons of Witches. This is probably without a doubt one of the most relevant episodes South Park has ever released. The premise is about the witches of South Park, the husbands and fathers, getting together to go and celebrate for a week on the mountainside, getting all drunk on Jack Daniels and high on crack. They get all wasted, perform silly rituals, until one of the guys shows up with a spell book. This is Chip Duncan, who only makes his appearance in this episode, so you're not supposed to care about him. But since everyone knows he's a douche, they just have him try a spell. Little do they know, the spellbook has real magic that turns Chip into a real witch, and so Chip causes havoc on the town and kidnaps children. Meanwhile, Cartman and his girlfriend Heidi run late to the pumpkin patch since Heidi takes freaking forever to get ready.
Can we get going, please?
Hang on, babe. Just a couple more things. Oh, I forgot my glitter lip gloss. Hold on, Eric. I want a picture.
No,
Will you take
Pumpkin
a picture
Patch is
of that?
gonna...
Oh, crap. Hang on. I forgot my bracelet.
Oh my f***ing God! Eric, potty mouth!
And this is why I have a boyfriend.
And they can't spend a minute at the pumpkin patch without a witch ruining everything. So Cartman then grows a huge grudge against Heidi as he comes up with a sadistic plan to have the witch capture his girlfriend so he doesn't have to deal with her anymore. Yeah, this abusive relationship will make sense if you watch seasons 20 and 21. However, all the other witches have to deal with their wives shitting on them for having a real witch attack the town.
People were hurt!
Yeah, I agree. It's awful. We're not like Chip, okay? He's a bad witch.
Now, I will admit, when I first saw this episode, I thought it was okay. Not too high on laughs aside from Cartman's frustrations with Heidi. However, the satire on the witches is what I think makes this episode very relevant. If you use social media or other forms of communication with groups and communities, chances are you probably had to deal with witch hunts and cancel culture, where an entire group of people are treated unfairly because of one person's wrongdoing. Now, while the episode does show some gray area with the witches over-exaggerating that there's a witch hunt, or a witch pursuit thingy as they call it, this episode does show genuine emotions that I have seen with my time on the internet. The witches getting angered for being labeled, how some people know they are not to blame, and their wives telling them not to be a witch anymore, how one person can fall into shame for being themselves, and how society can react to stuff like this. This is the same equivalent of saying, Oh, this liberal is acting all politically correct, so all liberals must be PC. Oh, this straight guy said something homophobic, so all heterosexuals must be homophobic. Oh, this artist can't accept negative criticism, so all artists must be a bunch of self-centered, triggered social justice warriors. I mean, you get the idea. Just because one person shows bad behavior does not mean that reflects everyone who is like them, even if there can be some shady stuff going on like sex and drugs. But to be more specific, this episode parodies the hypocrisy centered around the Harvey Weinstein sexual abuse allegations, where over 80 women accused Harvey for non-consensual acts. This later led to something called the Weinstein effect, where the hashtag #MeToo movement encouraged men and women, particularly women, to come out with sexual harassment claims against men in power, usually celebrities in the film industry or the political world. It got so insane to the point that no one could tell what was the truth, what was the lie, what was over-exaggerated, and it affected a lot of careers. And this effect extends further to the internet with cancel culture. Some allegations have proven to be true, but other wrongdoings are either blown out of proportion or they were small mistakes that really aren't anyone's problem to know about. Regardless if these men were innocent or not, a lot of people lost their jobs. While I originally liked this episode because of Carmen's struggles with having a girlfriend who takes frickin' forever to get ready, I feel the witch hunt stuff is not only relevant, but even I can relate to being in these situations, and I know how frustrating it can be. I mean, thankfully I haven't had any sexual allegations against me, because non-consensual is for creeps who can't keep their dicks to themselves, but I have been falsely accused as someone I'm not before, like homophobic, despite the fact that I'm bisexual, and I've seen friends who have had cancel culture against them. And needless to say, unless these people are actually shoving their dicks in your face, you gotta grow the f*** up and stop assuming a group of people is bad just because of another person's doing. This is a definite solid episode, and I definitely recommend giving this a watch, regardless if you're a good witch or a bad witch.
All ready to trick or treat?
Yeah, no, I've been ready for a couple hours now.
Number 1. Pinkeye.
Pinkeye.
Oh yeah, the classic Season 1 episode of South Park. So, how does this episode start off? And I love it already. So Kenny is brought to the morgue where they replace his blood with embalming fluid, but it accidentally gets mixed with some Worcestershire sauce, which turns Kenny into a zombie. Meanwhile, the rest of the kids dresses up for the Halloween costume contest at their school, with Stan dressing up as Raggedy Andy, Kyle dressing up as Chewbacca, and Cartman dresses up as his favorite authority figure who's given him a lot of inspiration. But the chances of winning the 2 tons of candy seems less likely as everyone in class dresses up as Chewbacca, including Wendy, who was supposed to come as Raggedy Ann, put it Stan in a very embarrassing position. And the school principal doesn't take so kindly to Cartman dressing up as Adolf Hitler, as she demands him to wear something else. So she makes him a nice scary ghost costume, which should be in no way offensive to anyone, right?
Hey, Chef. Whoa, Chef's really scared of ghosts, huh?
If you don't get the joke, then obviously you're not over 20. However, since Kenny is walking around, every person he ends up biting turns into a zombie, in an epidemic that they call Pinkeye. Although Chef ain't fallen for that cover-up as he realizes the town is being overrun by zombies. So with the help of Stan, Kyle, and Cartman, the 4 of them work together to stop the zombie apocalypse from happening, as residents and even people they love turn into zombies. I know some people might disagree on me with Pinkeye being the best Halloween episode since, 1, this is the very first, and 2, the set designs are very rushly made that there's no blurs to tell what is at a distance, and even the animation itself is very janky, which the movie itself also makes fun of. But here's the thing, unlike all the previous episodes where it's dated references or morals to a problem at that said time, Pinkeye is honestly the most timeless Halloween episode, and even though it makes references to the KKK and Michael Jackson's Thriller, they have made a huge part on history that will be remembered forever, even if we wish it didn't happen. And plus, a Halloween episode with zombies in South Park? That sounds like a ton of fun, and you know what? It is. and even with the janky animation, it really adds to the charm. I mean, if you think of almost every holiday short ever made, particularly the Charlie Brown or Rankin Bass films, these stories are often considered very timeless. But through production, they were very rushed and the animation was almost always very janky, especially with the stop motion shorts. They weren't greatly animated, but we still consider them timeless classics. And that's exactly how I see Pinkeye. It's janky, but timeless like these good holiday specials. And on top of every Halloween episode in South Park, this one is the most funniest one. Literally every scene is filled with a joke or a moment for you to chuckle at, and it's very appealing compared to just adults bragging about a witch pursuit thingy or listening to Mr. Mankey on how much he hates scoots. And to me, sometimes just having a good funny episode can be more appealing than just feeling the need to force a message in every episode, which, don't get me wrong, I love the messages these episodes give, but once in a while you feel like the show just needs to lay back and have fun. Do something creative and bizarre, and make jokes every minute when it's on screen. And Pinkeye is exactly that. A fun, timeless Halloween episode, and without a doubt, the best Halloween episode of South Park.
Oh my god, I killed Kitty! You bastard!
And so there you go, that was my top 7 Halloween episodes of South Park. While they may not be as remembered as the Christmas episodes, all the Halloween episodes on this list, in my opinion, were very entertaining and gave us what we've always seen South Park as. Funny, shocking, endearing, memorable, and creativity that you can only expect out of a show like South Park. So, if you're in the Halloween mood, go check these episodes out and see if you can unwind. I am Nitsa Gamer, and I introduce you the Blue Dollar side, where all of your incomings go to the YouTube Prince, Logan Paul.